So a sub by the name of Swifty Smithy suggested to me a side-scrolling shooter named Einhander. Einhander is a futuristic side-scrolling shooter made by Square for the PlayStation 1. You play as an unnamed pilot of a ship named the Einhander, which is a German word that basically means one-handed sword. You use the Einhander to fight in the war between the Earth and the Moon. Fighting on behalf of the Moon's forces, your objective is to gather reconnaissance, enemy weapons, and destroy enemy property. Though it described you as a soldier, the opening sequence makes you look more like a terrorist. And with no information on the politics or beliefs of either side, I need to ask,
are we the baddies?
Choosing to start a new game puts you into the ship selection screen. You start off with 3, but you can unlock several more by fulfilling certain conditions. Each ship will vary in the number of machine guns and gun pods you can carry along with you, with a short description that explains how the ship works. Once you choose the ship, you can choose your starting weapons. You only have a machine gun to start, but playing through the game unlocks more weapons you can start with. The game begins by throwing you into the first level. Being a PS1 game, a tutorial is absent, but thankfully, the options have a list of commands. Use the D-pad to move around the screen. Using the square button fires your standard machine gun, and the X button will fire the weapon currently attached to your ship's dick. Using L or R2 will increase or decrease your ship's speed, and if your ship has enough gun pods, i.e. the things that attach to your ship dick, use L or R1 to change the equipped weapon. As you play through the first level, you will see that this is no ordinary shooter. It features a few mechanics that make it stand out. First off is the weapon system. Rather than enemies randomly dropping pickups, certain enemies will be carrying a weapon you can collect, and you can see the weapon on the enemy. However, it isn't as simple as blasting them and picking it up, at least not all the time. It's possible that you can destroy the weapon along with the enemy if you shoot them in the wrong place. So aim carefully, but mindless blasting is fun, I will give you that. Should you shoot them in the right place, the weapon will be highlighted and begin to fall. You simply need to fly into it to catch it and attach it to your dick. Some minor but cool features is that sometimes you can fly past the boundaries of the screen and take the camera with you. There are also times where the camera will change angle, showing off a giant enemy or adding atmosphere to some of the level sections. These features really add to the appeal of the game and do create some memorable moments. Levels also feature 2 bosses per level. I'm not lying when I say this game is hard, it really is. One hit and you're dead, and there are plenty of ways to die. Being shot, grinding along the ceiling, bumping into an enemy, it all kills you. You have 3 lives before you have to use a continue, but even using a continue starts you off at a checkpoint. Thankfully, the game starts off fairly generously with its difficulty, and you can make your way through the levels instinctively. The game is easy to play and you can grasp the controls quickly, but that doesn't make it any less challenging. There are many hazards and enemies to fight, and all it takes is one mistake to lose, especially when you reach the bosses. The bosses are some challenging but great fights. It's one of those games where the bosses have no set attack pattern, but they will telegraph their attacks. So you need to pay attention to the behaviour and the movements of the bosses to beat them. The first boss you fight though, isn't that tough. It uses pistols to shoot at you, each one having a different firing pattern. If you shoot at its guns, you can destroy them to reduce the number of attacks it has, and this strategy can apply to various other bosses. But in this case, the boss takes a short beating before it goes down. Shortly after that boss though is the second boss, and this one looks a lot more intimidating, but is only slightly tougher. It's huge and severely reduces the amount of room you have to move, but its attacks? Well, to be honest, I don't know. It didn't live long enough to do any. While I talk about this next bit, I'll leave the full fight playing in the background and you can see what I mean. Having the right weapon can tip a boss battle in your favour, and the weird thing is that this boss practically handed me the weapon I needed to fuck it over. It reminds me of General Nux from Borderlands, the boss that wants to die and tells you how to beat his army. After you defeat the depressed boss, the level ends, your score is tallied up, and if you've scored enough, you earn an extra life. And then, on to the next level. With no loading screens. Yeah, fuck you Tony Hawk, Einhander did it first. Well, not first, but yeah, take that. You also get an audio message from the base informing you of your next objective. In this level, you're tasked with destroying an armoured train. You know, for a recon unit, I'm being given tasks that don't feel like recon work. Shit, if one ship is all it takes to destroy the enemy, this should be called Poe Dameron Simulator. Apart from the battles, the visual element of the game looks amazing. The levels are fully constructed areas and not looping backgrounds. Level structure can also change in an instant, posing new and sudden dangers, making you change your tactics constantly. Be it neon signs, turrets emerging from the train cars, and plenty more. The clever use of the camera adds more depth to the world and the dangers you will traverse, and because of this, it feels like a living world with actual history and depth to it, ready for you to destroy in a non-established region on behalf of the Moon faction. The graphics are also great for the time. Everything has a neat polish to the detail on it. Even the smallest enemy has distinguishable features on it. The sharp edges that you would see in PS1 games have been worked into the style of the game to make them look natural. Even minor details like lighting effects and the explosions have had effort put into them, making the vast majority of the game very pleasing to view. If I had to criticise one thing though, it's that some of the enemy bullets are quite small. The colour of them can help them stand out with all the chaos on screen, but sometimes the colour scheme of the level can make them tricky to notice before they hit you. After a furious assault on the train, you encounter the first boss of the level. From this point on, it's likely that you will die to a boss the first time you fight it unless you have prior knowledge going in. Many attacks will be thrown out at you, and some surprise you the first time you see them. But there is a counter to each attack the enemy has. It's just a question of recognising the telling behaviour and discovering the counter and being able to pull the counter off. Take this boss for example. It's got homing rockets, the counter, shoot them out the air, crab claws that shoot bullets, fly between the shots, a belly flop attack, fly high, a butt slam, fly high, then stay high to avoid its follow-up belly flop. Of course, targeting specific parts of the boss to remove attacks is also a good strategy and counter maneuver. Being killed by a boss spawns you back at the beginning of the fight, and often with a chance to kill a regular enemy for their weapon. Only, if you're an idiot like me though, you keep killing that enemy in the wrong way so they don't drop their weapon and you have to rely on your basic weak machine gun to beat the boss. Which I was able to do and felt a mixture of pride and shame for doing so. After you defeat this boss, you engage in a final assault on the train before attempting to escape in a tunnel, where in a cool reveal shot the second boss is waiting. Claustrophobia runs rampant here. The huge arms, equipped with weapons, mean that you can't slack for a second. They're easy to destroy, but one mistake could end the battle. Shooting the arms with the thermometer, I think, causes them to retreat and be replaced with an arm that has an obvious glowing weak point. Shooting that causes them to drop the weapon equipped and you can use it to unleash a bullet bukkake on the robot's face. The head is also capable of shooting echoes at you. Then when the broken arms return, they have new weapons equipped and you have to be ready for the attack they're going to try and surprise you with. This boss alters one of its attacks when its head has received significant damage. And I want to guess it was about to be more aggressive, but I was able to kill it before it did if it was going to do that. First try! Woo! Not to say the bosses are still easy, they aren't. Fucking trust me on that. But the climbing of the overall difficulty is quite reasonable. I just got lucky a few times. Level 3 starts off different to the other levels as you're moving down instead of to the right. Oh, Battletoad flashbacks. In this level, you start to gain access to new weaponry. The arsenal at your disposal will have you feeling spoiled, like a warlord in the black market. Each weapon functions differently with their own strengths and weaknesses, and you will soon have at least one favourite. Though I didn't get to see all of the weapons in my hour of gameplay, the ones I did get to see were pretty fun to use. My personal favourite was the cannon. It fires a powerful single shot that cuts through enemies and annihilates bosses. Other weapons include the Vulcan, a weak but rapid firing minigun, the Wasp, a fast firing missile launcher, the Riot, a shark shaped gun that fires lightning. God, that's so metal. The grenade launcher that fires grenades backwards, the Hedgehog that drops mines that quickly detonate after being dropped, and worst of all, the blade. a royalty-free lightsaber that means you have to get dangerously close to the enemy to hurt them. At least with the ship I chose. If you're using one of the other ship models, you can swing it around and it's probably one of the most powerful weapons on the other ships. Each of the weapons has an ammo counter. More ammo can be collected for that weapon by picking up the same one, but collecting a new weapon will replace your currently equipped weapon if you don't have room for more. Weapons can also be hard to aim too. Remaining idle keeps the weapon still, but your movement affects the angle of some of the weapons, which does make them tricky to aim at times, but it's not a huge problem. But when it results in wasted ammo, it is an annoying problem and one you need to consider. Especially now because the difficulty has made a slightly sharp increase here. The first section isn't as hard because enemies will just be throwing weapons to destroy them with at you. It won't be long till you encounter the first boss, and there's a lot you need to be aware of in this fight. First off, it's weapons. It's a little difficult to judge the angle they're going to fire at, but the other issue is that the entire fight takes place in the tunnel. Move too low or too high and you die by crashing into it, which means your room to evade attacks has shrank considerably. There are also robots that carry weapons crawling along the top and bottom of the tunnel. Shooting them drops the weapon, but the risk involves you potentially crashing into the tunnel or the robot itself. The boss also has a helix laser that you can avoid if you're in the right position. Oh, did I also mention that the weapons can be destroyed if they're hit by attacks? Destroying the lasers makes the boss spin out of control, and it only just missed me. In this phase, the boss has two new lasers. A green laser that has multiple firing patterns, like a 3-round burst, one thick beam, or thick and rapid as it gets closer to death, and a semi-homing yellow laser. There was something odd I noticed about this fight, and I might be wrong about this, but I think if you die on a boss, the game makes it slightly easier. When I fought this boss the first few times, there were parts in the level where a wall would spawn in the tunnel and I would have to react quickly to avoid it. But on my third attempt, the walls stopped spawning. I might be right, but I'm honestly not sure. Either way, the lack of the walls are what helped me gain victory in this fight. The next area is another Battletoads-esque area with a giant tube that spawns enemies, robot arms that try and pinch your butt, and more enemies that throw weapons at you. When you reach the bottom of the tunnel, the boss attempts a cheap shot on you as turrets try to shoot you down. Then you get to the boss and... fuck, did this one piss me off. Cheap deaths are common in this fight. Like the last boss, the environment can fuck you over, but so can the camera. The room you fight in tips depending on the position of the boss, and the angle it tips at can result in you grinding along the ceiling and dying. It's not the worst problem in this fight, but it's frustrating as fuck when it does happen. The camera is more of an enemy than the boss. The boss has several attacks, some of which look similar but have different qualities. For example, the missiles it fires could be missiles that shoot straight up when they're in line with you, or they could fly straight up and stick to the ceiling and explode, or two of them could fly straight up, stick to the ceiling and explode into a shotgun blast. It will launch some of these attacks off screen, meaning when you fly to the opposite side to avoid the boss, you could fly into an attack you couldn't see coming. Ah, fucking bullshit! This wouldn't be so bad if there was a sound cue to listen out for, but the weapons that have multiple firing methods sound the same regardless of which ones they use. I've said it before, and I will say it again. I fucking hate when luck is a factor in a boss fight. Oh, this is pissing me off. Oh, that was bullshit! Alright, you inbred sack of shit. You want it rough? I'll give you fucking rough. Fuck your face, fuck your spinning discs, fuck your missiles, but most of all, fuck you! Fuck that guy. Level 4. Now the game feels like a bullet hell game. The amount of projectiles and enemies on the screen is ridiculous, and at this point you need to be pinpoint accurate with your movements, or else... death. It makes me wish there was at least a shield weapon or a health bar, because it really feels like I need one here. God, if this is how bad it is now, I'm gonna fucking lose it at the boss. I do like the music of this level though. I'd show you it in game, but Guess what I forgot to do again. So, here are some examples. The music is made up of electronica, and progressive sound music is composed by Kenichiro Fukui. I probably just butchered that. Who has worked with Square and Konami to produce music on some games you might have played, including Lethal Enforcers, All-Star Pro Wrestling, Kingdom Hearts 3, G.I. Joe the arcade game, and the film Final Fantasy Advent Children, to name a few of the projects he's worked on. The tracks he made for this game complement the fast action well, and other times it sets an atmosphere that matches the location, adding to the individuality of every level. A very talented musician working with a very talented crew to make a very good game. Well, this looks like a boss arena. Oh look, it's a Robo-Fishy. Let's see how this works. This is gonna go well. With this boss, staying above it seems to be the best strategy to avoid getting hurt by it. But depending what you have equipped, you will have to get in its face to hurt it. Its primary attacks are launching an arc of naval mines, firing flares, and launching 3 pods that shoot a payload before vanishing. This phase of the boss isn't so bad. The attacks are mostly easy to avoid, and you can get a fair few shots on the boss before you have to retreat. It's the second phase that's a piss take. It grows arms and climbs onto the rail above. Its attacks change, and you must not stop moving or else you will be got. It has a blue flame attack that takes up most of the area that you are in. Flying low avoids this attack, but if you fly too low, the tail smacks you and you die. The tail itself is also a weapon and acts as a whip. The sub is able to shoot a homing missile out of its chest, and it tries to punch you Jack style. Not to mention the game is sometimes loose and sometimes strict with its hit detection, which makes it even harder. Unless you have the blade weapon. There is a way you can stagger it so you can land a ton of free hits, but bugger if I know how I did that. After dying 4 times to this boss, I finally won, only to lose the last of my lives trying to navigate through the tight spaces and fast annoying enemies that came after. Once your continues run out, it's game over and back to the main menu. But, on a new game, any of the weapons you picked up during your last game are now available for you to start with. Einhander is a cool and great game. It's full of action and never has a dull moment. The unlockable ships and weapons give you something to work towards, and the beautiful presentation make it a joy to watch. The difficulty, while frustrating, does increase at a reasonable rate, and the challenge you get from the bosses is a real thrill. My gripes with it are the odd hit detection, a lack of co-op, and no save function, but it's still a fantastic game, and you should not pass up the chance to try it. And that was Einhander. Thanks for watching everyone, and remember you're always welcome at the Spectrum.